Hello, grade 9 students. In this video, we're going to talk about our exam, biology exam 1 during this quarantine. So, the first exam for the academic year of semester 4, biology exams. So let's start with question number 1. Question number 1 is talking about diabetes. Diabetes is a disease determined by a gene located on an autosome. Autosomes, they are chromosome number 1, chromosome number 22. They are not related to the sex chromosomes. The adjacent pedigree represents a family whose certain members, they are colored in black, like the case of 4 and 8. They are colored in black and they are affected by this disease. Which disease? Diabetes. Is the allele responsible for the disease dominant or recessive? Justify your answer. I have to answer this question. First of all, I have to look to the pedigree. I can't answer this question without looking to the pedigree. Looking to the pedigree, number 1, 1 and 1, 2, they are normal. But they gave birth to an affected daughter, 2, 4. She's affected. So the allele for the disease, it was masked. So the word masked here is very important. For example, half of the mark is for masked. So the allele for disease was masked in the parent, which are 1 and 2. So the allele for disease was masked in the parent. So it's recessive with respect to the normal dominant allele. So first, we determine the dominant and the recessive allele. So that the allele of the disease is recessive and allele for the normal, it's dominant. Some of you is going to ask me, Mr. Can we use other examples than 4? Can we use 8? Sure, you can use 8, but you have to go to the parents, which are 5 and 6. 5 and 6, they are normal, but they gave birth to an affected son, which is 8, so the allele of the disease was masked, so it's recessive with respect to the normal dominant allele. Part B is an A by symbols, the corresponding allele, so you have to give symbols. Sometimes part B is not mentioned. Immediately, I'm going to indicate the genotype. So here you have to give the symbols. If I didn't ask for the symbols, you have to give that. So symbols, let N capital, for example, be the allele coding for the normal, which is dominant, over the recessive allele coding for the disease. Let D small be the symbol of the allele for the disease, which is recessive with respect to the normal dominant allele. This is first related to the dominant allele and recessive allele. Indicate the genotypes of the individuals 4 and 5. Justify your answer for each genotype. You have to indicate the genotype and you have to justify the answer. So indicating the genotype has a mark, justifying the answer has a mark. So you have to write both of them. For example, if genotype and justification is 1 mark, so half for the justification, half for the answer. So genotype. So let's start with the individual 4. Individual 4, she is affected. She is affected and the allele for the disease is recessive. So it should be expressed only in the case of homozygous or in the case of pure. So in this case, the genotype of individual 4 should be D small, D small. So the genotype is D small, D small. For example, 4 and 8, they are the same, since the allele of the disease is recessive and it cannot be expressed unless in the case of homozygous, the genotype is going to be D small, D small. 4 and 8, they are the same. Let's move now to 5. Individual 2, 5. This 5 is normal. So I'm sure 100% that this individual has the allele coding for the normal appearance or the normal allele, which is N capital. So this is first, I'm sure 100% that we have N. But individuals 5 and 6, they gave birth to an individual 3, 8, which is affected, has DD. So 5 and 6, they are carrier for the allele of the disease. So they are heterozygous, having genotype, and so they are hybrid. Okay? If you said an N, false. If you say DD, also it's false. For D, make the necessary factorial analysis to verify the appearance of the phenotypic descendants of the couple 5 and 6. 5 and 6, as we said, 5 and 6, they are normal, but they gave birth to an affected child, which is 8. So they carry the allele of the disease. So if they have genotype ND and ND, So ND and ND. So the final result of the factorial analysis, you have to do a table of cross and table of result. There are going to be 3 over 4, they are normal, and 1 over 4, they are diabetic. So moving to the answers of the question number 1. Question number 1, the answer. So recessive, as you said, the parents are healthy and they have sick children. So the allele responsible for disease was mask. So you have to say recessive and you have to say mask have for both of them. Then giving the symbols and the normal dominant allele, and we have the D is for the recessive allele. Genotype of 4. Genotype of 4, it's D small, D small. This half of the mark, 0.5 marks. The recessive allele or the recessive character can be expressed unless in the case of homozygous or pure. So this is half. You have to say both of them to get the full mark, which is 1. Genotype of 5 and D. So since it has a diabetic child, or you can say he has a diabetic child, a DD. So this child, you see, is 1 recessive allele from each of the parents. So they should have D and D. And the factorial analysis, ND and D, half. So NM, 1 over 4, and D, 1 over 4, and D also 1 over 4, and DD, 1 over 4. So the phenotypes, D over 4, N should be written in this parenthesis, or it's not accepted, or you have to say, for example, 3 over 4, normal, and 1 over 4, they are diabetic. Let's move now to question number 2. Adjacent document shows the double circulation for the blood. First one is called the pulmonary circulation, which is called the small circulation, or the systemic, which is called the large circulation. Referring to the document, you have to refer to the document. Give the name of the cavities of the heart. This question, most of the answers, they are in the document. I don't know why you have some mistakes in this question. First, the cavities of the heart, they are mentioned here. Right auricle, left auricle, right ventricle, left ventricle. That's it. That's it. You have to write down. Only you have to copy and write down. The blood vessels that carry blood away from the heart. Away from the heart. This is the heart. Away, you have the pulmonary artery is carrying away, and the aorta is carrying away. While to the heart, we have the pulmonary vein is moving the blood to the heart, like the iris. The iris is showing the pathway of the blood, and the vena cava is moving to the heart. That's it. It's all in the graph. You have to mention the figure, best. Only the figure. Now let's move to part 3. Blood vessels that carry the blood into the heart. We said that there are pulmonary vein and the vena cava. Specify the importance of the 2 circulations concerning the exchange of gases. Exchange of gases, 2 circulation. Which 2 circulation? Pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. Already we studied this. So the cavities of the heart, as I said, they are the right auricle, left auricle, right ventricle, left ventricle. 1 mark, bonus point. Even though these 1 mark also they are bonus. Aorta and pulmonary artery away to the vein and the pulmonary vein and the vena cava. Pulmonary circulation, what is the role? It gives the blood oxygen and get rid of carbon dioxide. 1.5 more. 1.5 for this, and 1.5 for the systemic circulation. It supplies the organ with oxygen gas and carries away carbon dioxide. Moving now to question number 3, the gut. Urea eliminated by the kidneys and the urine is a toxic substance. The elevated level, the high level of urea in blood might provoke a disease that affects the kidneys and the joints, the gut. Pick out from the text the effect of high quantity of urea in blood. Pick out from the text. This is the elevated level of urine in blood may provoke disease that affect the kidneys and the joints, which is called the gut. So the high level or the high quantity of urea in the blood provokes or causes a disease that affect the kidneys and the joints, which is called the gut. In order to determine the origin of urea in the blood, a study is performed on healthy individuals to show the relation between the quantity of consumed proteins and the concentration of urea in the plasma. These results are shown in the table. As you see here, the quantity of consumed protein in a gram per kilogram of body mass, and we have the concentration of urea in the plasma in a gram per liter. As you see, as the quantity of consumed protein increases from 0.5 to 2 gram per kilogram of the body mass, the concentration of urea in the plasma increases from 0.20 to 0.45. So this means that as the amount of the consumed protein increases, the quantity of the urea in the plasma increases. So the cause for this is the quantity of consumed proteins. So they said, first, you have to draw the curve showing the variation of the concentration of urea in the plasma as a function of consumed proteins. So you have to take a scale, a well scale, not to take, for example, every 1 centimeter 0.5 and then you move every 1 centimeter 0.2. Here, you must half of the point, half of the mark. Analyze the obtained results as the quantity of the consumed protein increases from 0.5 to 2 gram per kilogram of body mass. The concentration of urea in plasma increases from 0.20 to 0.5 gram, 45, gram per liter. This is the analysis. Throughout the origin of the urea in plasma, this is the origin of the urea in plasma. The consumed proteins is the origin. Whenever you have highly consumed proteins quantities, you have high concentration of urea. So the consumed protein is the region or it's the origin. Explain the gout disease. Gout disease occurs after the hydrolysis or after the digestion of the consumed proteins. So elevated level of urea in the blood. So this elevated level or high level of urea will provoke the disease, which is called the gout, that affect the kidneys and affect the joints. So the elevated level of urea, this is the pick out, provoke disease that affect the kidneys and the joints, which is called the gout. This is the graph. Graph, you have to take a scale, a well scale. Every 1 centimeter represents 0.5 gram per kilogram, 0.5, 1, 1.5, 2, 2.5. I'm not going to move 0.5, 1.1, 1.6, 1.7 every time you're going to move a step. You have to respect your scale unless your graph is not going to be correct. You have to respect the scale that you mentioned before. So if I mentioned every 1 centimeter represents 0.5 gram per kilogram, I have to respect this. Also, I have to respect every 1 centimeter represents 0.1 gram per liter. So every 1 centimeter represents 0.1, 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, and so on. I have to respect this. So this graph is showing the variation of the concentration of urea in plasma in gram per liter as a function of the quantity of consumed proteins in gram per kilogram of the body mass. This graph is 1.5 marks. Moving to part 3.1 analysis, the concentration of urea in the plasma increases from 0.2 gram per liter to 0.545 gram per liter as the quantity of consumed protein, or you say as the quantity of consumed protein increases from 0.5 gram per kilogram to 2 kilogram per kilogram of body mass. The concentration of urea in the plasma increases from 0.2 gram per liter to 0.45 gram per liter. What is the origin of the urea? Is the consumed proteins. Already we know that as the amount of protein increases, that's of the amount of urea will increase. So urea is produced or it's generated by the degradation or by the hydrolysis of proteins. So as we increase the amount of consumed proteins, the amount of the urea or the quantity of urea will increase. This high concentration of urea will provoke the appearance of the disease, which is called the gout disease. Question number 4, respiratory gas exchange. The exchange of oxygen gas, O2, and carbon dioxide, CO2, it takes place between the alveolar air and the blood. The document below represents the percentage of oxygen gas and carbon dioxide in the inhaled and exhaled air, as well as that in the blood entering and the blood leaving the lungs. First part, pick out from the text, or pick out from the adjacent document, the color of the blood entering the lungs. It's already mentioned. The color of the blood entering the lungs is dark red in color. The color of the blood leaving the lungs is bright red in color. If I ask you why, because high concentration of, low concentration of oxygen, that's why it's dark red. While leaving the lungs is bright red, since have high concentration of oxygen. Compare the composition of the inhaled air to that of the exhaled air in oxygen gas and carbon dioxide. Inhaled and exhaled in oxygen and carbon dioxide. So you have here to compare. Comparison, you have to say greater than or less than. So it's not an analysis, it's comparison. So you have to say in the inhaled air, the quantity or the percentage of oxygen gas, it was 21%, which is greater than that in the exhaled air, which was 16%. The percentage of carbon dioxide in the blood and the inhaled air was 0.03%, which is less than that in the exhaled air, which is 5%. So here, at the level of the lungs, the alveolar air is enriched with CO2 since the percentage of CO2 increases, while it's impoverished or it's poor in O2 since the amount of oxygen it decreases here from 21 to 16%, and this is the conclusion. So by referring to the addition document, the blood leaving the lungs is enriched in oxygen, meaning that it's rich in oxygen, and impoverished in carbon dioxide, meaning that it's poor in carbon dioxide. Blood leaving the lungs. Leaving the lungs, we're going to move to this. Blood entering the lungs, the amount of oxygen was 14%. While that, the blood leaving it was 20%. So this means that the blood leaving the lungs is going to be enriched in oxygen, meaning that the quantity of oxygen will increase. While the quantity or the percentage of carbon dioxide in the blood entering the lungs was 54%. While that leaving the lungs is going to be 50, so it's going to be decreased. It's going to be less than. So this means be impoverished in carbon dioxide. Throughout the direction of the passage of oxygen gas and direct carbon dioxide at the level of the pulmonary alveoli. This one already we studied this in class. You have to say that the the direction of the passage of oxygen gas and that of carbon dioxide at the level of the pulmonary alveoli. If you remember, this is the paragraph. We wrote this in class. So the oxygen gas passes from where to where? From the alveolar air, medium rich, to the blood, which is medium poor, and carbon dioxide, it moves from the blood, which is medium rich, to the alveolar air on the line side of the line, which is poor in CO2. So this, already we mentioned this, and we have to study this. This is the direction of the question. This is the exam. This is all the notes. So moving to the question number 4, the color of the blood entering is dark red color, blood leaving bright red color, F1 0.5 marks. The percentage of O2 gas in the inhaled air, it was 21%, which is greater than that in the exhaled air, which is 16%. The percentage of CO2 in the inhaled air was 0.03, which is less than that in the exhaled air, which is 5%. So at the level of the lungs, what happened? The alveolar air is going to be enriched in CO2 since the amount of CO2 increases, and that of oxygen, it decreases. That's why it's going to be impoverished in O2 gas. So the percentage of oxygen gas in the blood entering the lungs is 14%, which is less than that in the blood leaving the lungs, 20%. So the blood leaving is going to be enriched with oxygen gas, and the percentage of CO2 in the blood entering was 54%, which is greater than that in the blood leaving the lungs, which is 50. So the blood leaving the lungs is going to be impoverished in CO2. It's going to be poor in CO2. So what happened at the level of the pulmonary alveoli? Oxygen gas passes from the alveolar air, medium rich, into the blood, which is medium poor, and carbon dioxide passes from the blood, medium rich, into the alveolar air, which is medium poor, and CO2. This is all the exam. The exam was very easy, and we will move to discussion right now. So this is question number 4. Everything related to question number 4. Okay.